She cracked. But he said, no.
Yeah, well, I
I'm
looked
not-
at my
I'm- I
window
don't
when
look
I was
that
about to come
lately.
over here, and I was like, well,
I don't want to go that
Walking
way.
dead, and I said, do I look that bad? I can
well, I
actually
looked on my
perform
phone,
and The Walking
Okay.
Dead.
You do not.
I want everyone to notice that we're on the air now. We have 2 new lights on the walls over here, so. Anyway, it is almost 5 o'clock. We'll call this meeting of the Victoria Parks Commission to order. It's June 14th, 2021. We'll begin with citizen communication. The room looks pretty sparse, however, but if anyone who's otherwise occupied tonight would like to also speak to us as a citizen, I suppose we can listen for a moment. Not seeing any hands flying. Let's move to approval of the minutes. Although on the agenda, there are 2 sets of minutes listed there. One of them is not quite complete. So let's take a look at the April 19th, 2021 minutes. That's the first one attached to the back of your packet. If there are any changes or corrections, we can entertain those, or if not, we'll entertain a motion to accept them as presented.
Motion to accept as presented?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the April 19th, 2021 minutes as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those are passed and accepted. We'll move right on into other business, and we'll begin with Jason, who's going to talk to us about splash pads and a potentially different way of doing business with splash pads.
Yes, so good evening, Commission. I hope y'all all are doing well. It's been a couple months since we've been able to sit in this kind of a setting. You know, the last month that we had was a joint workshop, so it was a little bit different. So yeah, welcome back. It's good to see everybody again. More of an intimate setting, you know, this time. So what we wanted to do is bring this item to the commission and really get your feedback and see, you know, what exactly you as a commission, what your thoughts are. So to give you a little bit of background on this, hey, sir, is that, you know, typically Parks and Recreation Department, you know, we open up the splash pads and we have a set time that we keep those open. And it was typically, you know, when did we historically end it, Kimberly? Was it Memorial Day? It was Labor Day. It was Labor Day. So we typically ended it at Labor Day, and what we did this year was extended until October. Last year, we had COVID, and so we closed it in July-ish, made that decision and said we're not going to open it, and we decided to open it later on that year. But again, you know, historically, it's only been open for a certain amount of time, and the hours have typically been from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., people were able to rent the splash pad out for private parties, which was basically from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. What that necessitated was us having part-time staff go out to those splash pads, and because it is a rented facility at that point, we wanted to make sure that people are out, one, and then two, I say people are out, the public is out for the private party that's going to be coming in. And then two, I apologize, that's my computer hooked up to that. The second part of it is that you know, they tried to clean it up, right, and make it somewhat presentable from the entire day's worth of use. So we sat down with staff and we're like, okay, you know, how are splash pads going? Everything going okay? Let's have some conversations. And the conversations kind of spun around to rentals, you know, that we have, you know, a handful of rentals and that we spend, you know, a decent amount of time with part-time staff going out there and kind of facilitating those rentals. So what we did internally, we said, okay, well, let's pull up some data, right? Let's see what we're looking at. And so that's what we have not only in front of you, but also on the screen. I believe this was included in the packets because we wanted to take a look at what are our expenditures versus our revenues, right? And so this is what we came up with. We found out that, you know, in 2018, for instance, you know, we had $2,800, which was the most, you know, revenue that we had in that 3-year snapshot. So our total revenues were like $2,400. You can see there's some notes on pretty much every year, there's something that's going on. You know, the Ethel Lee Tracy, that splash pad opened at the end of 2018, but then it was closed shortly after due to a lightning strike. You know, all 3 splash pads, like I mentioned earlier, were closed due to COVID last year. So that changed the game up a whole lot. And so, you know, we're taking a look at this and we're like, okay, the headache that we have with part-time staff, just trying to get them in to not only do the things that we need them to on the softball fields, et cetera, but also to utilize them for this. And then also, on the flip side, park staff. You know, can we use park staff? Well, sure we can, but it also requires overtime for that, or it requires scheduling a little bit differently if we're not going to utilize our overtime. And so, you know, the questions that Kimberly and I had were, is this worth it? You know, do we need to look at doing something different? And so in those conversations, staff said, well, you know, instead of doing private parties, because again, the only time that you can rent is from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and most of the splash pad parties are usually for the smaller kids, which probably aren't going to be staying out till 10 o'clock at night anyway on a splash pad. Why don't we look at completely removing rentals from our splash pads, but go from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So in essence, we remove completely the reservations, but we open the splash pad more to the public. And it would be just like, you know, if somebody were to say, well, what about me? I want to still be able to have a party at the splash pad. Well, you can. It would just be like a park pavilion rental or a park pavilion, you know, first come, first serve. If you're there, you're there. There's a little bit of space for you. Cool. So with that being said, we wanted to circle back around to the commission and really get your input. And there may be something that y'all know that we don't know, maybe something that y'all are hearing that we're not. And so again, we would just want to at least have that discussion with you.
Well, so I like my general thought on it, Jason, is I kind of like the idea of exchanging just more open time for the public to use the splash pads, you know, kind of like the way you would a pool or something else. And I kind of like the idea of not having it exclusively tied up with, I'm sure that happens from time to time, and I know those people may be disappointed if they can't do that, but like you said, you still could use them. You just won't have the exclusive run of the
Right.
place. And it doesn't seem like I mean, see, we've got some costs. That's probably not all the cost you actually bear to maintain and keep those hours and keep watch on it all. So my thoughts are, I kind of like the idea, but I certainly want to hear what the rest of the commissioners think.
$3,150 figure that you have for the average employee cost. What's the average rental that would incur that $3,150?
I believe the average rental is $200 a day. Yeah, $200 per day
For 3 hours.
for the 3 hours. Yes, sir.
I mean, I agree. I echo, you know, the point that I think it would be great to have broader hours. Because, yeah, like you said, little kids that are going to the splash pad probably aren't out in that, you know, 9 and 10 o'clock at night time range. The thing I do wonder is just, I went to Lone Tree recently and checked it out for the first time, and I've been by there many times, but it's been packed. Like, it's hard, like you're sharing picnic tables with other people there, and there's not really another facility there. Like, it's all inside that little gated area of the splash pad. So if you did want to have like a birthday party or someplace there, you'd kind of be hard pressed without a rental.
Right.
And so, I mean, there are those probably a little bit older kids in the community that would still use that from, you know, 7 to 9, you know, maybe birthday party, hour and a half birthday party. Is there any potential to put another facility or expand the existing facility there to incorporate some type of pavilion like what you have at Grover's Bend or something like that, just an awning type thing that you could rent out for a birthday party?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely look at that. I mean, part of the master plan, you know, is looking at some of those parks, and quite frankly, that area has a lot of green space, a lot of real estate to be able to do some things. So, you know, in addition to that, I'd also mention that we do have Riverside Park that we're looking at having another splash pad, you know, put into that park, and so. That one, the idea behind that is to be a lot bigger, a lot more robust, if you will, when it comes to those amenities. And so that would be gauged for not only the small kids, but also the older and the teenage. So that could be a potential, you know, option as well. But yes, we have the ability to put in pavilion.
So my question is, so tell me about the logic to do 9 to 9. Do you think you have that much, use to open it an hour earlier and stay open 2 hours later?
Sure. So, yes. I mean, we've heard a lot from the community, just folks in passing too, about, having extended splash pad hours. How come you don't open it a little bit earlier? Those kinds of comments. And we know it. I mean, it gets hotter, than all get out by mid-morning. And so that is also something that we could always change too. I mean, if we start to see that there's not, a presence at 9 o'clock or at 8:30 or whatever, 8 o'clock at night, then we can obviously change the hours to that. But I do think that there's enough people in the community that want to utilize splash pads that will use them from 9 to 9. I mean, because they were closed, they were open until 10, so,
And the what,
and then Mike, just bring it, yeah.
hello. Hello, good evening. And so part of the 9 a.m. Opening it an hour earlier is it gives park staff enough time to go around and clean up from the night before. Instead of saying, Tracy's going to open at 8, Lone Tree's going to open at 9, sort of thing, just a blanket 9 a.m. So Parks does have enough time to clean up everything. And then just the later hours. Because right now we don't lock up the facilities. So it's just the timer goes off at 10 o'clock for private parties. So it's not locked up. It's just when the timers would go off for people to stop using.
Okay, and is 9 to 9 going to be 7 days a week? Okay.
When they rent it out, how many hours is that for? What's the time frame when they do rent it?
So when they would typically rent it out, it's $200 for a 3-hour time slot, which it would be mandated to be 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
And did they ever consider doing 10 to 12 as parties opposed to 7 to 10? And as far as rental, I don't think there's a sign on any of the splash pads that says rent this, kind of boosting the rate of it. And I would also suggest if they did leave that option open, just add the $30 fee, employee fee, or call it, or add the price of it itself, if that option was left open, if the money was the problem. Because if people really wanted it and that was the only thing that was keeping them from it, perhaps they would pay that.
Okay.
But I was just thinking, because it's a lot cooler from 10 to 12, and that was just another idea.
Sure.
Because they did pretty good in the previous years. Not just extremely well, but like I said, there wasn't so much advertisement saying, hey, these are up for rent, if there was really a focus on trying to profit off of it, opposed to just being an extra amenity for the community.
Right.
Those are just my thoughts.
Well, I mean that's a good point too. Is what do we want the splash pad to be, right? I mean, like you mentioned, I mean it's not, I guess it could profit in essence if you're looking at those numbers there. And on the flip side, you're right. I mean, not all of our expenditures are on there because we didn't include chemicals and all of that stuff. But as a snapshot, just to be able to provide you some information, that's what we wanted to show. And so, yeah, it could be a whole nother point of conversation, Mr. Albano. That's a good point.
How many total times was it rented out in the last year it was open, 2019?
Let me look at the.
Is it $100, $100 each?
It's $200 each.
200? Okay.
About 10 times.
So, yeah, 10, 12 times.
How many square
And to my
space?
understanding, most of the parties naturally end about 9 o'clock anyways, that's from staff sharing. It's normally, the party just ends.
That's the age group generally anyway, right?
Not very much.
I really love his idea, though. If, let's say they're
Doesn't the
gonna
average what?
stop renting it out,
If you have
at least there
200. and
as
you
a
have
spot
1200,
that
6
perhaps
times.
they can
So
continue to
it's
rent
10
out, that
times.
gives them
It's
their
not worth
own
it.
area to play in or have a party. Even if it's, separate and the kids have to run out and then run back in.
Right.
Or whatever, so having that extra option to be able to do that. So,
Well, and just as a little bit of, anecdotal evidence, there were parties going on when I was there a couple weekends ago. My wife takes the kids there a lot more than I do. but people kind of tailgate out there in that parking lot because there's not a lot of room inside there at the Lone Tree. There's, I mean, what, like 4 or 5 picnic tables, and they're all packed. I mean, we were sitting with other people at our picnic table, not part of our party, but some people will just kind of tailgate outside in the parking lot. If you thought about it, if you had a facility, 1 or 2 small little pavilions, it'd be pretty easy to do an ROI. You know, you probably get about 10 rentals a year out of the existing hours, which aren't ideal. If you had some more ideal hours and you could rent it out 2 or 3 times, you know, something to think about in the master plan is how much is it going to cost you to erect a couple pavilions that you could then rent out at $100 a pop. I think that would be a pretty quick turnaround. Because my thought is those are a great opportunity for people that, you know, don't have access to a private pool or can't pay for, you know, one of the public pools around here. That where they're situated is in a lot of residential communities, especially Lone Tree. It's in a heavily residential area, a lot of houses around there. It's not really meant to build build profit, but it'd be nice if it could, you know, kind of pay for itself. If the pavilions could pay for themselves and add back to the community.
Sure. Okay.
Yesterday, I was at the Ethel Lee, the one more north, and we had to actually sit outside because there's not enough tables. So, like you said, moving forward with any other splash pads, that should be considered.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of parents that might be sitting off to the side watching or something like that.
Sure.
We live in South Texas. There's not enough water to, you know, cool you down.
I understand. I mean, I went to Lone Tree with my son on Saturday and my daughter too. And as soon as we pulled up, I mean, there were 4 more cars that pulled in right behind me, and it was the same thing. I mean, like you said, all the picnic tables, everything was full, and I mean, they are heavily utilized for sure.
Jason,
Compare in the overall, do you know what the operating expenses are of one of the splash pads versus the revenue that it's generating?
Not right off the top. No.
I'm assuming the revenue's nothing compared to.
Yes, that's true. I mean, we're looking at, you know, acid, and a drum of acid goes for a couple grand,
Right,
I
right.
think, and that's just one drum.
The
I
thought
mean,
there is if you extend the hours and eliminate the exclusivity of parties, you're gonna probably lose that revenue for the most part.
Correct.
But in the big scheme of things, it's
Yeah,
not
that-
offsetting anything.
Correct, yeah. I mean, that's just a drop in the bucket.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
what I'm looking at, for the whole summer for use of 3 pads, was used in 2018, 14 times. That's for the whole summer?
For the entire summer, yes, sir.
14 times for 3, it's not, to me, it's not feasible. I mean, I think your plan is a lot better because, I mean, you're looking at 14 times and you have the whole summer. I mean, I was thinking maybe it was used at least Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the weekends, but no.
No, sir. I mean, there are times where, you know, one Saturday is double booked, for instance, you know, well, not double booked, but there's a party at Ethel Lee or a party at, you know, Lone Tree at the same time.
Right.
But, I mean, that's going to be far and few between out of the potential, you know, 3 or 4 months that we have it open. Longer than that, 5 or 6 months. So, yes, sir, 14
That was
times.
5 or 6 months. Divided by that, it's only, what, twice a month?
Yes, sir.
I went to an end-of-year party at the Lee Tracy, and they went to the splash pad, and it was great. They loved it. I think the extended hours are good because it shut down. I guess it, you know, automatically shuts off, and they thought that it was going to go on longer. So the little kids didn't get to play in the water, and, you know, like, they just didn't know. They didn't realize the times when they made the plans. And so, yeah, like, I think it would be beneficial to have it open later.
Other thoughts or comments from anybody?
I'd like to say something real quick.
Sure,
I kind of
Jason.
support that. I like your idea of that 9 to 9 that you're doing. Because have you taken consideration right now, we're just getting over COVID. And what I'm hearing from a lot of people right now, they're ready to get out and start doing something.
Right.
So I think by what you're doing right there is going to open the doors for more venues of people to start doing these things, coming out and partying. And I think there will be an increase from what you're predicting right now or what you're showing.
Right.
So I think it will, because what I'm hearing out in the community, people are ready to get out and start doing something. Now we got the mask off, they're ready to start socializing. The kids are ready to start being more active out there. So they have a lot of energy ready to just blow out there. And I think that you will, with your hours that you have right there, I think it would save you a lot of time, man hour, overhead, all those things. And I think your logistics is going to really grow because people are ready to party, to do something.
Sir.
I agree with you, Jesse. I mean, I think it makes it a better public amenity. And it's clear from what you said that they're getting used heavily. And all we're doing is making them more available for more people by doing this. Now, there's something to the thought about, you know, the revenues and saying goodbye to the revenues, but, or maybe using the revenues as a means to expand and do more of them. But if we're going to do that, that's a whole different program than just catch as catch can, like you're talking about. I think what I hear you saying is that the things are, people like them, people use them. Our community will get more use out of them if we do it this way. And then for future planning purposes and stuff, I mean, it sounds like splash pads are something that we, you know, really want to support and maybe expand because they seem very popular.
And maybe bring a pavilion to them, so then we have that rentable,
Maybe
you know,
that's
facility.
right. Maybe there's another, something that could be added to them that's rentable.
'Cause
Because
when-
like I said, who was saying that people are tailgating, that's a great, I mean, you can
Right.
just, I mean, they are relatively small. I think the Riverside one's planned to be a good deal larger, but.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, and also another thought was maybe set 2 aside for the hours that you recommended and set 1 aside for rental.
Yes, sir. That actually, that came up in our discussion as well. And quite honestly, I think we were landing on Lone Tree to be the one that we were looking at rental, just because it seemed to be the most
Centered,
popular
yeah.
and centralized as
Centered,
well. I honestly can't remember what the thoughts were that came out of that, but do you happen to remember?
We
We'll,
was just throwing that idea around.
we'll revisit that and see what we can do.
Yeah, because you're looking at
with staffing.
14 uses for 2018, of what's the most popular year.
Right.
I mean, you've got, what, 5 months?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely take that approach too and see what options we have. Like you said, you said logistics, and I think that was a big key to it, was staffing logistics and how all that worked. And quite honestly, that's what sparked the whole conversation to begin with.
I mean,
Plus, you got a good time for safety as well, too, so, which is good. You know, you got police patrolling, you know, there's daylight, so you got a lot of amenities that are working in your favor in this. Where if it becomes dark 30, then, you know, people's attitudes start changing their personalities. But at least this way, you're looking at the safety of the young ones and the elderly as well, so I think that's, I'd like to comment on that there.
Jason, how many staff members work the splash pads?
Well, it's typically just one person that
One.
works it per each rental. And that would be a part-time staff member. That's where that $30 figure came from, was a part-time staff member for X hours. I believe it was 3 hours worth.
Well, I'm talking about regular hours from,
Well, that's where, I mean, we typically don't. I mean, the only thing that staff does for maintenance, if you will, of the splash pads is to clean them and make sure that the chemicals are balanced correctly. And that's
no
basically.
one is there during duration of the hours of operation?
No, sir.
Okay,
No, sir.
just for the private parties?
Correct. Yes, sir.
I just, one last thing, when he was talking about the pavilion, I don't know if you've been to the community center splash pad. It's not operable, but not too far behind it, it has a little pavilion. It has the plugs and maybe 6 benches, and I think that would be something that would work good, even if someone don't rent it out. It's a wonderful space to chill, and you could see the splash pad from there and everything. So that would be something. I don't know if you get a chance to check it out. You can see it over there.
Is that one opening back up again?
Yeah, so we actually have an update on that, but that one has undergone some issues with concrete, and so we're looking at leak detections and everything, but we can get into that in just a minute. But yes, sir, I mean, that pavilion's great over there. I mean, that's a whole, that little area is really cool. I mean, the playground, splash pad, all that area
Yeah,
is really
it
neat
just
right
goes
there.
good with the splash pad. It just goes perfect.
Yep.
Kids could run from the splash pad, start sliding and all that, while the parents are in the back at that pavilion barbecuing and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that area. Well, it sounds, I mean, if there's any other comment, I mean, it sounds like we have some pretty good direction to kind of continue. It sounds like continue moving forward with the direction that we had presented to you, and then continue to look at pavilions, adding some additional areas where we could make rentable spaces. And then we'll also revisit the Lone Tree and just see if there's one specific splash pad that we could just rent out and see what the logistics are behind that.
Just, last comment, really, that's 30, if I counted right, 32 rentals in 3.5 years or whatever, total.
Yes, sir.
That's not that many. I mean,
Yes, sir.
I think it's more to me, that's more recommendation for your
That's
idea.
I wouldn't
10 a
say it's
year.
lack of people wanting it. I think the price is kind of high, but if it's justified, perhaps then the 9 to 9 is better because it does keep a lot of people for renting that for 3 hours for $200. And that's not bad for some people, but I'm saying that might be one reason why it was not more successful.
Very true. Okay.
Quite possibly. Okay. I don't think that's anything we need any action on, right?
No, sir, it was just discuss and make recommendation.
Okay. Parks and Recreation Master Plan update, Jason.
Sorry about this. So I'm jumping from one spot to another. If you could just bear with me for about 30 seconds. Okay. So just a really quick update on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Let me see if I can, there we go. So we have a bi-weekly meeting with Christian, with Half Associates, and Kimberly and I sit on that meeting with him, and we usually discuss, what's going to be coming up, next steps, et cetera. And as you all are aware, we had that joint workshop with City Council last month, and the consensus from the group sounded like we're able to move forward with MLK and Ethel Lee. And so that's what the consultant is currently working on right now. He's working on those designs, those concepts. The idea is to have a really thorough conversation with Half Associates next month during the July meeting with the commission. And at that time, that's where he'll present the two conceptual designs for MLK and Ethel Lee. I know that we still have a third one out there, Riverside Park. That one was a little bit more debatable on where it ended, but nonetheless, Christian has already had conversations with staff about what his thoughts are. He's had conversations with CMO as well. But y'all are the ones that are spearheading this project, and so we want to make sure that we revisit that with everybody here on the commission. And so one of the things that I'm going to do to kind of help facilitate that is I want to meet individually with each of y'all one-on-one, just to talk about Riverside Park. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I want to be able to compile these notes and send them over to Christian. And at least he'll be able to have an idea of where your thoughts are coming from. And then, in addition to that, we'll have another meeting with him to discuss it. But we don't want it to get, just presented here at the commission level and then us have a 2-hour-long conversation. I mean, I don't think anybody wants that. So nonetheless, I mean, that's what's going to happen for the conceptuals. If y'all are okay with that, we'll have a pretty long meeting next month to talk about those two. In addition to that, Chapter 3 is going to be finished by the end of this month. Christian's going to be sending that over to city staff for us to review. So we'll be able to take a look at that, and then hopefully we'll be able to present that as well in July. But just to give you a friendly reminder, that's going to be Chapter 3 out of a total of 5 chapters. So just to give you an idea of how far along that he's coming, or they're coming as a team. Schedule, we have talked about an updated schedule. We're still pretty much on track with the October deadline, maybe pushing it back very slightly into the first part of November, but that's due to some of the hiccups that we've had, just with some conceptual pieces, et cetera. But nonetheless, I mean, it's still pretty much on target.
Jason,
Yes, sir.
Chapter 3 is needs assessment, is that what that is?
Yes, sir, the needs assessment. Yes, sir. That one's a pretty thick chapter. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that I've had conversations with Christian about, and we want to have further conversations with y'all as a commission to help prioritize some of those needs. And so again, that'll be another conversation that we'll have in the future with Christian.
Is that something you can share with us when you get it?
Yeah,
Or just so,
absolutely.
just so those of us who can, want to start looking at it can and go ahead and get you comments and stuff, or?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be somewhat similar, I guess, to chapter 1 and 2. I believe we sent that out prior to, and so we'll, as long as when I receive it, the timing's right, I'll pass it on to you to make sure that you have it. But yes, sir.
All right, good.
Oh, and I completely forgot about this, sorry. The last 2 open house opportunities will be sometime in August, so we still have to nail down the dates for that, but we will have 2 more open houses. And the idea is going to be the same, that we have one on the north side of town and one on the south side of town.
All right, any questions from the commission about the plan or how things are going on that?
I haven't gotten to go to one of the open houses yet, but how have those been attended by the community? Does anybody show up? Or?
Very little.
You had to ask right now, didn't you?
Very little.
No,
I showed up.
quite honestly, I mean, open houses have been pretty low attended. And when I spoke with Christian about it, it's something that has been seen throughout, his organization too, is that the open houses just aren't really bringing in people, if you will. I could say collectively, we had maybe 30, if we were lucky, between the 2.
That's what I assumed. I just
It's also still during COVID time, so that's still like, it was like coming out transition period, so
True.
we contributing some of that to it as well.
I think we're all going to find out if we serve beer or something, we'll get a better turn.
You read my mind.
I agree. Beer and tacos, we'll bring them out.
Okay, all right.
But that's all I have for the master plan.
Okay. Discuss the Tree City USA program and the commission's interest in that. There's a handout in your packet, I think, on this.
So this is something that I just wanted to circle back around to the commission. I believe, well, some of y'all weren't on the commission at the time, I don't think, when I presented this, but yay, more mosquito spraying, Kimberly. You hear that?
Said hail and put a
So what, I guess to back up a little bit, Tree City USA is something that's put on by the Arbor Day Foundation. And what it does is it shows the community that you and the state and the organization that you, right, just love trees. And I say that jokingly, but there are certain standards that you have to meet with it. One of those is having a tree board or a tree department, which we don't have a department. We have a Parks and Recreation Commission, which could also act as a tree board. There's also a tree care ordinance that we used to have. I can tell you the city of Victoria used to be Tree City USA until 2017. In 2017, for some reason, we removed the tree ordinance from our code, and we haven't been Tree City USA status with the Texas Forest Service / Arbor Day Foundation since that time. So we've had this recognition before, or designation before, but since 2017, we haven't. There's also a annual budget that we have to basically say that we spend $2 per capita, which a lot of communities are, I mean, it's going to be pretty easy to do. We're talking about $120,000, $130,000 worth, so it should be pretty easy. That takes into account labor, tree plantings, tree trimming, contract work, et cetera. And then we have to have an Arbor Day proclamation or observance. And so a lot of the stuff is really put onto staff, except for the tree board. However, we could actually get away with the tree board portion of it because I'm a certified arborist and I could be the urban forestry department. However, if I get hit with that proverbial bus situation comes up, right, we're kind of out of there. And so what I wanted to do was reintroduce this to you as a commission and see if this is something that you are interested in. If you are, what we would end up doing is, well, I'd take ordinance and code and all that fun stuff over to city council, and we'd get, a tree ordinance with your approval. We'd get it to city council and get all that reestablished. But you as a commission would only need to meet, I believe it's quarterly. And so we wouldn't have to have an additional meeting. It could be literally the same time. We would just take a break from our Parks Commission meeting. We would enter into a tree commission meeting, talk about business, close that out, and then reconvene into our Parks Commission meeting. So I wanted to throw that out there to you. This is something that we wouldn't be able to even start until next year, but we could go ahead and start the legwork on it this year, if you're interested.
And again, we don't really know why we stopped being a tree city, or do we?
I don't know all I can do is I reached out to the Texas Forest Service, asked them, and she said, you haven't submitted an application since 2017. I don't know what happened. And I looked in the code for tree ordinances. We don't have one. And I saw that it was removed in 2017.
There
So
was a pretty big wind event in 2017 that might have had something to do with it.
yeah, the hurricane. I'm not sure
That's
exactly
true.
when it was removed
That's
from
right.
code, but yeah.
It blew away with the
Yeah.
board blew away with the rest of the stuff that blew away. Possible.
Is there anything that comes along with that? I mean, I know you said there's some things that we have to do as far as spending $2 per capita and meeting once a quarter, but are there any grants or things like that that we would be additionally, I guess, qualified for being a tree city, or?
What are the benefits?
Yeah, what are the benefits to it? I mean, there's really not much more than just bragging rights, if you will. But I can tell you that there's a pretty decent amount of Texas cities that are Tree City USA. I think it just helps reestablish and reinforce that, you are, pro nature, if you will. And I mean, I haven't seen any grants. Arbor Day is fun to work with, but no, I mean, there's nothing, that comes with that. No, sir.
Being a certified arborist, I'm sure that's near and dear to your heart.
Just a little bit, but yes, sir.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think, from a economic development standpoint, and just as a thing that you would be proud to say that your city's a member of an organization like this, I think it might have some benefit from that standpoint. Not really tangible, we probably can't, put it in the bank, but, I mean, there are, I honestly wonder how it was operated before and who operated it. I don't know if the Parks Commission did it. I don't think they did.
It was probably the department, because the last applicant was my predecessor. And so a lot of the times, that's all you need is just the figures, the data. And you start compiling all that information, you put it on an application form, send it out to the state forester. She approves it or disapproves, and that's how you get the status. It's bragging rights.
The only question that I raise about it is, I haven't lived in Victoria all my life. I've seen other cities with tree ordinances and people that get in some pretty hot legal trouble for cutting down trees on their own property. So, my concern would be with the reach of the ordinance.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be something that I'd bring back to y'all as a commission. One thing that I've already talked with, so Gretchen Riley, she's the state forester that oversees the Arbor Day Foundation. I've spoken with her in length about this, and they have some pretty general tree ordinances out there that we could use as a template or a sample. And it's really, it almost comes down to private property, they're your trees, public, they're our trees. And it could be as simple as that.
Right.
Well, it looks like in the handout that they had, they do talk about public trees.
Right.
And you're right, there was a big dust up on the downtown tree business not too long ago. And I don't think council had much appetite for getting into that, getting into the middle of that. Although there was a lot of talk about it, and I think people brought some concerns to council about that, and they talked about it, I believe. But this didn't strike me as requiring that kind of an ordinance, though.
No, sir.
I mean, to be a qualifying ordinance for this program.
The language that first caught my eye when I read this was back it with a force of law when necessary. That just seems a little strong-handed for a tree ordinance.
That's San Antonio's tree ordinance.
And it also depends on where you sit on how you value nature. Because there may have some that have the opinion of, I'll cut any tree down, and then there's some people that really support not cutting historical trees down, which was the argument back when they were talking about that tree. It was the tree in a man's front yard that was so many years old, and and something like that. But I believe he got to cut it down, though.
No. So, yeah, I mean, you're correct, Mr. Urbano, is that, you know, in places like the city of Austin, for instance, you have a tree preservation ordinance that talks about just that. You know, it's, you know, the diameter at breast height has to be certain circumference, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so those are the things that I think that is speaking to. But yeah, I've had some really just very generic tree ordinances before that seem to please everybody. But yeah, that's something I would, again, definitely bring to you as a commission.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, I guess passing on something like that's not really our bailiwick anyway, but I think what we really need to think about is, do we want to be the board to be the ones responsible for holding the meetings right, that's
I think it would fall probably to us or the Beautify Victoria. What is that? I mean, I would think that that kind of be the two lanes of either the Parks Commission, which a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily going to fall within the parks.
Right.
A lot of it would, but then the other organization that you have is, what's the Keep Victoria
Keep
Beautiful?
Victoria beautiful, yes, sir. Well, and that's kind of unique too. It's a good topic because that's two different departments, and while we do overlap and we do interact with each other, I mean that's something we'd have to figure out who is going to take the lead on that. And so, I mean, that's something too that we could look at. If there's something, I wanted just to, I guess, mention this is that there really isn't going to be a whole lot of hard decisions made. It's not like we're going to say, oh, you're the folks that people want to cut down a tree, they're going to come to
Right.
us. No, that's not the case. It's if that's the issue, that they'll come to Public Works or Parks or the City Council. But the idea behind this is for us to at least have another body that oversees what we're doing as a department for Arbor Day celebrations, for any kind of tree activities, and really just to oversee the application, which again, we would take care of as a department, but just hand over to you and get your blessing.
I support it, and I think, like you said, we could continue to talk moving forward on his concerns about people not being able to do what they want on their property. But I support it because we can have that discussion as we move forward. I support the part where, you know, we're breaking to have a little moment to talk about the issues that may come up for that certain meeting. And to have one of those general templates, like you said, that perhaps may not infringe on people's rights if they would want to cut that tree down.
Right. Okay. Perfect.
all right, any other comments or thoughts?
I'd bring my kid to this event.
You what?
I said I'd bring my kid to this event.
Oh, which one? Oh, the Bringing
On the
Nature Home?
flower, on the
Oh,
flyer, yes.
yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff too. We'll talk about. Okay, so it sounds like everybody's okay with Tree City USA? Okay.
And I wouldn't mind overseeing that,
Do you want
that's
to,
fine.
do you want to bring back and put it on a, you know, for a vote next time, or do you want to?
Yeah, I can.
Or do you want to, I mean, we can probably take action on it tonight if somebody's interested in making a motion.
We can take action on it tonight because I'll go ahead and motion as a yes, as a no.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, a motion and a second that we go ahead and pursue the Tree City USA program, using the commission as the tree board. Any further discussion about that? Hearing none, let's, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, good. Great job.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Appreciate it.
I think the good thing is that the discussion doesn't end here,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, so.
All right. Jason, you're awfully busy. Talk to us about mosquitoes.
Kimberly? We have, I wanted to present to y'all a mosquito update. This is something that I presented to council at the last council session, or the last council meeting. The language in here talks about making a recommendation on a mosquito abatement program. However, I didn't have the information attached to the email that was sent out with y'all. So I do have a couple copies over here. I'm gonna touch on the highlights. While I don't think that there's any action that needs to be taken, please feel free to discuss and tell me if there is. So really quickly, again, just an update on the mosquitoes. So I want to talk to you really briefly about the habitat and the life cycle, the reproduction and the hunting, the abatement tools that we utilize, as well as the program, and then just a seasonal update for you really quickly. So you can see the habitat. I mean, everybody pretty much knows that they like that still stagnant water. The larvae actually habitat and range from marshes, freshwater wetlands, tree holes, ditches, gutters, and discarded tires. That's one of the reasons why we push to the public, please remove the water, standing water in tires and potted plants, et cetera, because that's the start of it. The adult mosquitoes, those are actually hide in the tall grass or the shrubs. So again, another piece of the PIO is, please, trim the shrubs and keep your grass short. The life cycle you can see on that right picture, it's really an egg that turns into a larva that goes into pupa stage, and then the adult emerges. The only mosquito that sucks on the blood is going to be the female, and so after she has had a blood meal, that's when she'll go and she'll lay eggs, and so she'll be looking for a water supply after she has her blood meal. The reproduction, the females generally lay 100 eggs at a time. That can vary depending. It can go as little as 50, it can go upwards of 500. The adult males actually feed on nectar. Again, the females are the only ones that suck the blood from their proboscis. After the feeding, as I mentioned earlier, they go and look for a source to lay the eggs. From an egg to an adult only takes 8 to 10 days. Yeah, 8 to 10 days. And so that's kind of our target, if you will, when we start talking about adulticiding, et cetera. And actually breeding can occur within 28 hours after the adult emerges. So very quickly, soon after they emerge, they're over there reproducing again. So that's a continuous battle that we have. Type of hunting is going to depend on the genus, if you will, or the type of the mosquito. Some genus of the Aedes mosquito tend to be more active during the daytime, and those usually remain within a short range of where they're born, if you will, or hatched. Some genus of the Culex mosquito are actually active at night, and those are the ones that usually take a longer trip out. They'll go about a mile, 2 miles out from where they're at. Yes, sir.
Got a question, because
Yep,
I've
sorry.
heard this, I don't know if it's one of those wives' tale things. Can the eggs actually lay dormant for years?
Yes.
Like in soil and things like that, so then when we have a big rain event like this that saturates soil, it'll actually produce more mosquito?
Yes.
Okay. How long is it, like 10 years or something like that?
Last I was a handful of years from what I've seen.
Yeah, and tires are the worst offender in Texas.
Yeah.
So tires hold a lot of the mosquito eggs just waiting to be filled up with water. So,
Yeah, it's crazy. Like if they can lay the eggs on the side of a container, for instance, and they'll sit there like glue, and it won't those eggs won't activate, if you will, until water hits it. And so, yeah, they could be on the side of that container, and we'll go through a drought, right? Nothing moves, and then we have a big rain event, and here you go. You've got mosquitoes emerging again. So, yeah, it's crazy. So the next slide, I want to show you some of the mosquito abatement tools that we utilize in the Parks and Recreation Department. So we actually have 5 mosquito truck sprayers, and those are to basically target the adult mosquitoes. It's called adulticide. And in that second picture, that's what you can see is a type of sprayer. We actually got this on a grant, 5 of these, and they include a GPS system, which you see on that third picture. So it actually shows where the employee has gone, where they've traveled, and then where they've sprayed. So in that last picture on the right, you can see a bunch of maybe some red lines that are hard to see, but you also see green. Green means that the mosquito fogger was activated and had actually put out mosquito. Sorry, that threw me off. I don't know what that was. But that right-hand side shows you everywhere that we sprayed. And so we utilize this a lot when somebody calls up and says, hey, I don't know if y'all have come by and sprayed, and we can pull this map up and say, yes, we have, or you know what, no, we haven't. And then going back, that first picture is mosquito dunks. And so that's what we use in standing water to try to mitigate the mosquitoes on the larva side. So when they were in the egg and in the pupa stage, that's when we try to get those before they turn into adults. Okay, so with the adulticide, we use this chemical called aqua resin. There's basically two different forms. You have a chemical that's either water-based or oil-based. This is a water-based adulticide. This is a restricted use pesticide, which means that only people that hold a Texas Department of Agriculture license can purchase this. It's also a non-selective pesticide, and the only thing I can relate that to is Roundup. You go and you spray Roundup, it doesn't care if you're St. Augustine or Bermuda or a weed, it's going to kill it. It's the same thing with this. This is going to go into the air, and if there's any pollinators out there, it's going to kill those as well. And so that's one of the reasons why we don't spray until 8, 9 o'clock at night because of those pollinators. We do spray the maximum limit allowed, which is .007. We cannot retreat after we've sprayed a site more than once in 3 days. And it's very important for everybody to remember because we get calls too. Well, you just came out. I need you to respray. The mosquitoes are out. Well, I can't. I literally cannot. This is a federal offense if we do this. And so I just wanted to throw that out there to y'all. There are some variables though when it does come to the retreating. For instance, if there's any documented evidence of disease in humans or animals, or even in the vector mosquitoes, then we can spray more. Or if the state approved a natural disaster and we're in our recovery efforts. So the reason why I bring up that last one is because that's something that we're trying to do right now is start spraying or start capturing mosquitoes and start a trapping program. So what we've done internally is we've created a program. It's a 12, 13-page document that basically talks about what we're going to do for mosquito control. Please be mindful that when we go out there and we utilize all of our tools in the toolbox that we can, we're still not going to eradicate 100% of the mosquitoes. This is to knock down the mosquitoes to a point to where it's manageable for people and it's not a health issue. So our hope is that we implement this by the end of June. We're looking at some mosquito traps that are a little bit back ordered, so that timeline may be pushed back a week or so. But nonetheless, the rest of this is pretty good to go. We are going to be trapping for identification of the mosquitoes and the populations. So if we start to see an influx of population, we know that we can go and spray more, or we need to target those certain areas. Same thing with the health issue that I just mentioned in the previous slide. As far as staff is concerned, we're somewhat limited too, but biweekly collections are what we're planning to make. If we can make more, we will. With risk levels and responses, we have 3 of them. They are low, medium, and high, if I'm not mistaken, and each one of those categories lists out what our action plans are. You know, whether it's just going to go and treat a certain area or whether we notify residents within a specific area and retreat continuously. But nonetheless, all of those risk levels are in here and what our action plan is. And then it also includes, you know, just continued public awareness and education. So again, communicating with communications and PIO about what we're doing and just continuing that educational piece. So what have we done so far this year? I can tell you that the entire city has been sprayed out 4 times. That's the entire city as a whole. We're looking at, now that I hear rain in the background, probably going to be doing it again this week or next week. But we have sprayed the city out 4 times as compared to last year. That was a total of 3 times. We sprayed a little bit more than we have last year. About 2 weeks ago, maybe even 3 at this point, over 100 larvicide tablets were placed in Riverside Park alone. That's something that we're continuously doing as well, is placing out tablets or briquettes, right? Briquettes. A larvicide has been placed in standing water throughout the city and in ditches. We actually reached out to the GIS department and they've assisted us, thank you GIS, with updating mosquito map. And I'll show y'all what that looks like in just a second. But we're also in the process of updating our larvicide map. I bring this up because we'd love to be able to push this out to the public on our city website. So, and then of course we're trying to improve our routes and times of spraying and of course implement the program and publish it on the website. So to give you just a quick look at figure out which one GIS did, right? So the one on the left was the old school map, if you will, that staff utilized for the last handful of years easily. And you can see on the right-hand side what GIS has come up with. On the right-hand side, I just want to make note that each one of those sections takes about 2 hours to complete. And so we're looking at about 36 to 38 hours worth of total mosquito spraying just for the adulticide. That doesn't include larvicide. So again, when we talk about efficiencies, trying to figure out when we can do this with the staff that we have, that's kind of what we're looking at. How can we target the entire city and spray out the entire city in 2 days versus 4? And with that being said, that's all I have. And no, that's not my favorite mosquito.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. It's fun. I actually went out one night, all night, and it was great. I told you about it, Mr. Keeling. It's great. I told Mr. Keeling, I was able to look out, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You got all the street lights, and you see just this fog, and there's just something that overcomes you that you just know that you're just killing those bloodsuckers. It's like, oh, I got you.
You're
So,
sure that's not a side effect of the aqua resin?
it may be. I don't know. I've been out there too much, though.
There was an article in the paper, I think last week or maybe the week before, that was talking about the fact that mosquitoes actually do have a purpose, and it was pollination. That they actually are the males anyway are useful. But it did talk about the ones that bite too. But thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. Other questions or comments from anybody on the commission?
No, just before the mosquitoes, I wouldn't have known, once again, that this would fall on your department. So thank you very much for killing the mosquitoes.
Sure thing. Sure thing.
Are there any health? I mean, I heard people talking about it at lunch, overheard like people talking about like that fog going through and how it's really bad for you. Is there anything like, obviously you don't want to sit there and huff it probably, but does it have any negative side effects for humans or dogs or anything like that?
I haven't looked that far into the label, to be honest with you. I'm sure at some point you could find something down the road if you
I
look hard
can-
enough with anything.
I can attest to having passed them on my bicycle, and it's not that pleasant.
Yeah, but on the label and the safety data sheet, it just says to wear, just long sleeve, boots, closed-toed shoes and pants, and, you don't have to wear any kind of mask or gloves or anything like that if you're just spraying, so.
And that is part of the reason why we, in addition to the pollinators, why we go out at night primarily. I mean, it's just less interaction with the public, and so less opportunity for that to happen. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
Okay, Parks and Rec Department update.
I'm gonna let Kimberly chat for a minute. I'm gonna go grab some water.
I don't blame you.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to start with some recreation updates. So part of the recreation updates, we were talking about it when, do you guys want updates on what has already happened or what is coming up the next month? So this way, like next month, I can be best prepared, but what would you all as a commission prefer?
Both. Tell us about the last month, and then, moving forward, what's coming up?
I'm prepared for next month, what's coming up.
Okay, what's coming up?
I think things that you believe would be, that our input would go the furthest in helping you out. The topics that would help you out the most I think would be the best. So that way we could give you that feedback that you're looking for, or anything, and as
Right.
well as the
So
things
the
from
highlights of
past.
what happened and the highlights moving forward.
Right. That's my opinion. That's all. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, some of what just happened, so we just finished up our cornhole league that was at Aircrafters. We did have a kayak clinic set for this past weekend. We did have to cancel it due to the flow of the river was just too fast, and being a beginner clinic, it was not safe. So it's being all those that are registered are now going to be in our August kayak clinic. So those are the two big highlights for that. Moving forward, we have our co-ed adult volleyball is happening now. That league is going on now. We have 6 teams, so it's really exciting. The Coors Light Summer Street Dance is happening this Thursday at De Leon Plaza from 5 to 7. This Saturday is a cornhole tournament at Aircrafters, starting at about 4:30 or so. adult kickball and softball start on Monday. Hope Fest is happening this next weekend in our special events area. We'll have our pop-up park trailer out there. Bringing Nature Home, you guys have a flyer in your areas. So that's going to be June 30th, led by our fearless leader, Jason Alfaro, and the Master Gardeners and Texas A&M. Their extension. And then the 4th of July celebration, the Miller Light Blast Off Independence Day celebration. Bag of Donuts is performing at 6:15, and we are having fireworks at 9:30. The carnival that's at the community center is also coming back. So it'll be there that day as well for some added entertainment for everyone that's coming out. And then July 24th is Southside Summerfest. We are going to be partnering with them in some way, whether it look like a pop-up park trailer, if it's in the daytime, if it's more of an evening event, we'll be offering a movie out there. So those are the exciting happenings for recreation.
The movie in the park, the camp out, did that ever happen? Because I know it got canceled originally and it got rescheduled and I think it got rained out again. Like, is it just not meant to happen or?
So, yeah, we were looking at it's not meant to happen, but there will be one in November. Okay. So it's getting really warm. So that does not equate to fun camping. Although apparently some people bring out AC units, which is pretty exciting to see in tents.
Glamping, huh?
Yes.
Nice.
I really love glamping.
Yeah.
I wish, I would love to see that on the lake or the water in Victoria.
Okay.
If I had the money to do it, I would do that. The glamping, it's real hot right now, and I love, like the idea of it is hot as well as the weather. But
Right, you got the best of both worlds, right? I mean, you got the relaxation and the chill atmosphere in your camper, and then you got the outside. Like,
Yeah.
it's best of both worlds. Cool. Well, just to kind of piggyback off of what Kimberly mentioned, we're also working with Joel and the CVB to update the calendar that they have on their website. So we want to make sure that we include as much as we can on the Parks and Recreation side of things. And so we're working with him actually just as recently as today to start getting some of those events and those programs updated on their calendar as well. So.
I was gonna ask, is there a concert event coming up at Ethel E. Tracy? I saw somebody had posted something about it, but I couldn't find any information.
So I know last Friday there was like a Snare Water Fest
Maybe that was it then.
festival
Okay.
music happening. Yeah, last Friday afternoon out there. I'm not sure about an upcoming one though. But
That was probably it. I just couldn't find any information on it.
You good with rec? You want to go into
Yeah.
parks, or y'all? You let me know.
And if we want to add to the recreation, so we are still looking at our special event application in ordinance. So Tori, one of our administrative assistants, so she's taking on our special events process. So I'm working with her to really look at everything, find out what's confusing, so that way we can make it a little bit easier. If it's confusing internally to staff, it's confusing for the public, so it's harder for the public to want to put on special events. So we're looking at doing that. We're working a lot with other departments like police and fire to find out how we can best work with them and streamline everything with them as well. I think that's all with that.
All right, questions, comments on recreation specifically?
Oh,
Jason?
me? Sorry. So I'll try to be fairly quick with it. I just want to give y'all some updates on a few projects. The duck pond, believe I sent an email out to everybody on that. We did get awarded the grant from TPWD, so it was $621,509. So we did get that. Since we did secure that grant, we are looking at a potential phase 2 to go ahead and move forward with in this construction project, which would ultimately create an entire loop around the pond with sidewalk trail. And so that's something that we'll be looking at with a consultant as well too. So okay, so then I plan to have a meeting with TPWD staff and the consultant in the next coming weeks, probably next 2 weeks or so, just to get them down here, get them connected, do a site visit. The whole goal is to get under contract with TPWD by the end of the summer. And that basically, we can't do anything in the project, just FYI, until TPWD comes down They say everything's good and we're under contract. We can't put a shovel in the ground and move any dirt, otherwise it'll jeopardize our grant. So we're not going to do anything until TPWD comes down. But nonetheless, whenever we do go under contract with TPWD, we're looking at a 6 to 8 month project once it actually commences. So
Is there anything that we can do to help you with that? Anybody that the commission can do? You need any,
plan one heck of a grand opening.
okay.
Honestly, no, sir. I mean, I think just having the support for the grant and everything else was enough.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Really quick update on the soccer fields. Just wanted to let y'all know that Fielder's Choice came in this past week and started working on some of the small things that we asked them to repair for us. So, for instance, they're going in and they're filling in all the low areas with sand. They're going to be rolling some of the humped areas, if you will, to flatten them back out. There's a small section that needs to be added to the project that wasn't there originally, so they're going to be working on that. And then once that's completed, they're going to resprig the areas that don't have grass. The idea is to hopefully get them completed by the end of this month. So within the next couple of weeks, they should be in and out. VYSO should still be on track for moving over at the end of August. So that's still on track. And so we're going to have conversations with them here in the next couple of weeks as well. I wanted to give you a quick update on the YMCA pool hours. So there's a packet in front of you, or at least a sheet of paper in front of you. So one thing that I wanted y'all to be aware of with the YMCA is that when we contributed funding to help with the construction of that project with the pool, there were some stipulations in there about how many hours we had to have open for the community. They have far exceeded those hours that we had put in there in the agreement, and so that's their new schedule. So I wanted y'all to be aware that there has been extended hours for community open swim specifically on Friday and Saturday, and even throughout the week, to be honest with you. I think historically it had ended around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or something like that throughout. So that's a plus. Another thing that I wanted to touch base on, and Kimberly, you may be able to help support me on this one, is the community center splash pad. So we have 3 splash pads. We have the community center splash pad, we have the Lone Tree splash pad, and then we also have the Ethel Lee Tracy splash pad. So when staff was going around and opening everything up basically for all of our splash pads for the season, we noticed that there was an issue over at the community center splash pad. Basically, the concrete had shifted, creating a pretty large tripping issue, as well as an issue underneath that we obviously don't know about, because if the concrete's sinking that decent amount, there's an issue down below. So throughout that time, we've been trying to reach contractors, et cetera. Splash pads are a little bit difficult, quite honestly. You can't just get a plumber out there and say, hey, can you throw a camera in this line and let me know what it is. So we did meet with a contractor out there maybe about 3 weeks ago or so, and had them take a look at it. And we actually just received the bid or the proposal back today. So they're going to come out, they're going to, fix and repair everything on the top, but yet we still have to do a camera. We have to, throw a camera down underneath and see what's going on. So we're looking at about a $20,000 bid, I think is what he gave us to repair. However, we're going to scope both Ethel Lee, because there's an issue at Ethel Lee as well. It's just not as bad as the community center creating a tripping issue. So we're going to look at Ethel Lee, and we're going to look at the community center, and we're going to see what's wrong underneath first. Because ultimately, in my opinion, we need to figure out what's underneath before we can fix up what's on top. So we're going to spend $6,000, $7,000, whatever that is, to be able to get those looked at. That's just to look at it. That's not to repair. So just FYI. So we will continue to work on the community center splash pad again. What they gave us just for the surface repair was 20 grand. Oh, 17 grand, I'm sorry. Was 17 grand. So again, I just want y'all to be aware that's something that we're working on. It's just kind of taking a minute. So unfortunately.
Is that like a design error when they designed it originally? And do we have any recourse to who designed it?
And it was built on the old pool where the pool used to be. There used to be a pool underneath it. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know. I think we'll be able to figure that out, or hopefully be able to at least help determine once we get that camera down there, down underneath the ground. I mean, I honestly don't know. It's at an area where there's a large bucket of water, I think it's the baseball, and whenever it tips, literally right there where it dumps, there's a seal where two concrete pads meet. And that seal, I think, is the issue because the seals all the way around the entire facility they're deteriorating. And so I think that could be an issue right there. No, sir. Yeah, 3 or 4 years. So anyway, I wanted to give y'all an update on that. Any other questions before I move on? Those were the kind of big projects. Okay. All right. I also wanted to let y'all know about some personnel changes that we had in Parks and Recreation. And the only reason why I bring this up is because it is affect what we do kind of on a daily basis right now. So we have 4 positions in Recreation Division. 3 out of those 4 positions will be vacant by tomorrow. One of those positions is a leadership position that we have, which is a Recreation Services Manager. And we also have a park superintendent who's going to be retiring at the end of next month. So in essence, out of 5 leadership positions that I have within the department, 2 of those are going away. One's retiring and one just decided to look for other opportunities out there. So we have taken a step back internally with staff, and we're trying to come up with some ideas and some restructure, things that'll make our department a little bit more efficient, things where we see that there's a gap in services. And so we're going to be chatting with Mike this week and talking about those options that we have. I really am pleased with the ideas and the thoughts that we've already come up with. I think a lot of it, if it happens, we'll be able to focus on all the things that we already have gaps in. Recreation programming for teens and adults, nature-based programming. We know we're really good on sports, but we're also looking at sports tourism as part of that. And so I think there's going to be some really great discussions that are going to be coming up here in the very near future. So I wanted you all to be aware that internally, we're doing as much as we can. However, you won't see new programs coming out like we had originally intended. We're going to stick with the basics, if you will, for the moment, just because we're going to be stretched thin with recreation. But nonetheless, we're going to come back bigger and better and knock it out of the park after we get full staff. So I just wanted y'all to be aware of that. I also wanted y'all to know that we're working with United Way to produce a learning trail throughout some of our parks. We don't have any really specifics on that too yet. I think we're still kind of talking with them about it. Kimberly mentioned the Bringing Nature Home presentation. That's something that we want to do quarterly with the Victoria County Master Gardeners as well as the AgriLife Extension. Just really trying to, target those folks that nature-based. While we want to have a presentation going on for the older folks, right? We want to have some younger activities going on for the kids. And so that's why we have it at the community center to try to break that up a little bit.
Thinking that maybe something cool in the future would be
Yes,
at
sir.
one of those meetings with the children to have it at a place where they could plant a tree, so that when they grow up, they'd be able to see that tree and have something that ties them to Victoria also.
I love that idea. I love that idea. And we need to, quite honestly, we're going to have to come up with some Arbor Day ideas and some programs. So I'm going to be calling you.
And y'all might want to let the churches know and different, groups about this event so they can help y'all promote it. Since, there's not, like, in the college, Victoria College, I know that continuing education and stuff, I think maybe send that info to them so they can promote this for you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
Let's see, I'm trying not to take up too much of your time. I also just wanted to give you a quick update on Riverside Park with the flooding. We've had a lot of trees come down because of the flooding. We still have 2 areas that are blocked off. It's going to be Fox's Bend and Grover's Bend area. Obviously, those are the most inundated when it comes to floods. But I also wanted you to be aware that staff is going in and placing new yellow gates throughout the parks, strategically placed gates. It's to allow access still to the zoo when floodwaters do rise up. high enough to where we need to shut down a good portion of the park, as well as just a few other areas where the staff has had some issues with cars going around. So the idea is to keep as much open as possible while still closing the park down safely for flooding issues. So I wanted y'all to be aware of that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when the gates are closed, like, between the Children's Park and the Rose Garden, that gate by the boat ramp?
Yes, ma'am.
So is the park closed or is just the road closed?
The road is closed.
So the walkers were, because like, walking and bicycling was still,
It's discouraged, but yes, it's still open
Okay.
to be able to do that. The reason why we close it is because there's an issue, there's a certain area when you get down to McWright, actually, there's two areas, but one right by the golf course where it gets really close to the edge of the road. I say really close, it's close enough for me to be worried about somebody going off, so I say we shut it down. So that's kind of where that comes into play. Thus, some of the reasons why we're looking at additional gates.
I don't know if it was open to walkers. I mean,
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
When the entire park
You might
shut
get
down,
arrested,
it's
but
not.
yeah,
But yes, ma'am, it is.
okay.
And quick update, so Grover's Bend and Fox's Bend are still closed. Grover's Bend should be open tomorrow. Fox's Bend, there's some new trees down that's blocking the road, and they're very, very large trees. So it's gonna be a little bit longer until it gets open.
I just have another handful of updates for the golf course and the community center. One of the things that I want to provide y'all next time, part of the reason why Kimberly asked what kind of information you want is because we're going to have a PowerPoint up here for y'all to be able to see some of these things instead of you just listening to me and yawning and going, oh, okay, come on. So I just wanted to give y'all a heads up on that. The golf course, they made, they came out with $84,000 this month, so they did really well. They had 198 tournament rounds, 175 practice rounds with a total of 2,277 total rounds. So they did a really good month. That was in spite of being closed a handful of days too, so did really good. They hosted 10 events / scrambles in the month of May. And so, you know, again, golf course has been really doing a really great job of just producing some really good stuff. The community center there, I apologize. The community center, they're starting to ramp back up with all the events and everything starting to take place. They're actually working on repairing some issues that we had from the lightning storm a week or so ago. So when the carnival came in with that crawfish, we had a lightning strike and it actually knocked out the entire power of the community center. And so we had some electrical issues. So we're working on getting that repaired. Additionally, we also have some sound equipment issues that we're getting repaired as well. So all of that's going to be taken care of. And then the only other thing I have for community center is that we actually have some funding to replace the entire HVAC system. Well, I take that back. We have money in there that was budgeted this year to look at repairing some of the HVAC system. However, the entire HVAC system needs to be repaired. So what we're looking at doing with the money that was budgeted this year is getting engineering services taken care of out of it. But then next year, we already have it budgeted for a replacement of the HVAC system. So in total, I mean, you're looking at a fairly large project, you know, in excess of $250,000 roughly. So, but that's all the updates I had on the golf course and the community center as well as parks.
That it?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That's it now, I promise.
all right. Anybody have any further questions, comments for Jason? Or I guess we can go ahead and talk about any future agenda items. All right. Hearing none, I think that we can adjourn. Is there a motion?
Make a motion?
Okay,
Second it.
all right. All in favor?
I.
All right. Thank you all very much for your participation today. Good to see everybody. Again, it's nice to be able to get back together, face to face.